brave, and the words that you did, like that actually is the right name for the song, but brave words. And if you haven't listened to the song Brave Words, it's in there for a minute, go home and that's the song you should listen to.
And it does, I mean, it reflects the story on some key level, because I mean most careers in rock and roll most careers in rock and roll stay in tragedy for their entirety. But people who do get close to the triumph bit, they generally then end in tragedy. You know, so the beautiful thing about this story is that then there's you come up again on the other side. You know, and that was one of the things that, you know, right at the beginning I really liked about this, is I have a lot of friends who've gone the triumph and the tragedy route and generally don't come out of it again. You know, so the fact that Martin has managed to do that is, you know, I think really inspiring. So worthy of.
For those unaware, we've just completed an American tour, and there's the 2 new albums, and all the new chills are in the audience tonight watching.
Anyone who hasn't seen the Chills live, how many shows have you got?
I don't know.
Like another 5 shows.
7 more shows over the next week. Yeah.
And we were just there. We started off our premiere day watching the Chills at Cheer Up Charlie's, and as someone who's been filming this band for 2 years, I can tell you, I'm like blown away. It's a wall of sound. It's so beautiful. So go and watch them.
Tonight, 1 o'clock.
Some more questions? Back there.
Martin, if you could go back in time and have a sit down with your original band iteration self, what advice would you give to yourself?
What advice would Martin give to his young self?
It's something we've actually talked about in the movie quite a bit. It is complicated. Would I tell myself not to go near drugs? No, I think I probably wouldn't. I'd say watch out for it, because there were positives in terms of altered state material that came out of that. But the whole sharing with the rest of the band, I don't think it's quite as bad as it looks in the movie, frankly. I would say that. But what we do now is we really communicate as a band, and I wish that had been discovered earlier on, or encouraged by band members or early management, that we just really talked amongst ourselves about what we're doing. That's the 2 most crucial things, I think.
More questions? Oh, right there.
Yeah, I really enjoyed your collections so much. And is that a permanent installation, or is it something that gets set up and taken away? How's that all?
Sadly, it was only 5 weeks, which was kind of a slot in the Otago Museum that they had available, and it suited us perfectly to kind of try it out. And
Are you a museum curator? Would you like the collection?
because there has been talk of it going further afield, even overseas, there has been interest, but which would be great, because the response has been quite extraordinary to it, from little kids seeing toys they've never seen before, to old people having memories.
You should have been there when the dead cats were on the wall. And this wee boy, just with his eyes open and his mouth just dropping. You know, it's certainly an interesting exhibition, a little bit different from your average.
But there is a permanent exhibition in Martin's house.
That's true.
Yeah, I do tend to do the guided tour with new people.
So if you want to come to Dunedin, he's offering you a guided tour.
Martin, as a songwriter, do you have a particular process that you use? Do you start with the lyrics or the music, or has it changed over time?
The question is about the songwriting process.
They tend to happen separately. I'll be writing lyrics, keeping little notes of ideas, and recording. I just record on the phone now, on the iPhone, musical ideas, and then I'll just find a combination, usually the least obvious one, something where there's a beautiful lyric against something a bit more disturbing, that kind of thing. So that's what I'm looking out for. The main difference now is, incidentally I've got a cold, that's why I'm speaking like this. The main difference now is I'm much more critical and apply much more self-editing, whereas I used to just assume if it was coming out of me, it must be brilliant, so share it with the world. And so, yeah, there are songs out there I wouldn't still release, I think.
I was a fan of yours originally in 1989, Cambridge, England. I'm a UCLA grad, so I'm also from Los Angeles, and I know that the film chronicles you in both places, Submarineville, South Palm. I want to say I'm a lifelong fan. I've always been bragging about you, even when you kind of went underground on me a couple times. And I want to say that I think I needed this film because I wasn't sure which band I was saying I loved so much. Now that I realized there were so many different people involved with it along the way, it hurts a little to know that that band that I loved could have maybe done a little bit more if it had stuck together. And at the same time, I really appreciate how much drive you had to just keep going and to continue your brilliance and be here today and bring things full circle for me. And so I know if it hurts me a little bit to say this, you've got to be feeling some of that yourself, and I was wondering if you could speak to that.
I'm going to paraphrase that a little.
Yeah, well, thank you for the start.
Thank you.
I found the movie pretty emotional myself. I mean, you can imagine it has been opening of old wounds to some extent, confronting sides of myself that I don't think were always pleasurable. But the process of working initially with Rob and then for a much longer period with Julia, we just reached an understanding about how far they could go. I agreed to be as honest as I possibly could right from the start. The only stipulation was if it was factually inaccurate, I would point it out. And yeah, sorry, what's it? I can't see anything. Well, it's you not shifting seats. Okay, now you've interrupted my flow.
Sorry, go.
What was the last bit?
Factual.
Yeah, and I wouldn't interfere with other people's opinions, even though in some cases I don't think they're quite right, but it's not my role to change people's memories of events. And so yeah, so looking at all, it's pretty.
And just a little bit more about where you find the drive. I mean, you have had, a series of different groups that you've worked with along the way. Where did you find the drive? I mean, that's an internal engine that you must have. I mean, you got to dig deep for that.
I guess so, but I also give up regularly, and it's. I mean, okay, you might, when I go away, I might give up for a couple of days and just think it's never happening again, and then I can't stop it. The drive to start making art or music again. I mean, the weird thing about the dead cats and stuff is it may manifest in something weird like that. First of all right, I won't write music anymore. I'll paint dead cats. But it's all part of the same process, just needing to get something out, and I can't stop it. So I see myself more as a vehicle for ideas, and then you have to find the energy within and find the right people to understand that.
I mean, it's not, drive is maybe not quite the right word, is it? Because it's almost like you don't have a choice. I mean, I think that is something that a lot of artists have, and I think that you kind of, you're quite at the extreme end of that art, and just like you can't own.
Let's also just remember, how long had you had that cat before we finally filmed it? Was it 20 years?
I think the first cat was 20 years.
So sometimes it takes a long time for, beautiful works to come to life. And then they do.
One last question.
So I'm also a super long time fan. Ever since I heard 1980s, the MIT radio station played, it was Brave Words all the time. And you may not know, but Pink Frost was the #1 song of a Boston College station for a few years. And I've been a fan ever since, and my boyfriend grudgingly puts up with it. But one thing I really appreciated was Silver Bullets. I think I loved every song on the record. And I was really appreciative of the environmental theme. I myself, I'm involved in environmental efforts, and that was kind of unusual. You don't really get political too much. And I thought it was long overdue, so much appreciated. And what are your thoughts on that? Are you still politically motivated at all?
Perhaps more now than ever, I think, but it's a really tricky area to go into to try and write songs that aren't just preachy or obvious or will date very badly. But the strange thing is, looking through this material, realising that I have been writing that stuff right back as far as what Brave Words was about. People maintaining that intensity to change environments. There's Song Sanctuary about domestic abuse, and there's Male Monster from the Earth about male violence, and there's scattered throughout, there's a lot of issues that have been addressed, and I'm not always aware that I'm doing it at the time. It's just something that comes out. So, but now it just seems such a crucial time to try and really kind of hone that skill as much as possible. I don't want to be adding just more hot rubbish to the heap that there is. So if there's a middle ground of creating that kind of music and having something which will reach people, then that's what I'm trying to do.
All right, we have to stop for now, but please go see the Chills while they're here if you can. And don't forget this film's Excellent Audience Award, so the ballots you got when you were coming in, go ahead and cast those early on. Have a great night. Thank you.